The next question, the member for Orleans.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier. The Premier says he wants judges who will be tougher during bail hearings. And on this, we can agree. And that's why we worked with the government last year on bail reform. But the Premier also says he wants to abolish the independent judicial system in exchange for a politicized one with like-minded judges, one that's used and abused south of the border. So he's appointed biased, unqualified political insiders, notably his former Deputy Chief of Staff, to lead the panel that makes judicial recommendations. But the problem with politicizing the judicial system, Mr. Speaker, is that the Premier's former Deputy Chief of Staff is also a paid gun lobbyist for Colt. So, Mr. Speaker, how can we expect judges to get tougher on gun crime when the guy recommending them for the job is the guy who sells the guns?
To reply, the Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I think the member opposite has a reading comprehension issue, Mr. Speaker, because that is not what we have been saying, Mr. Speaker, at all. At all. Now, here's the thing, Mr. Speaker. They continue to raise the same issue over and over because they don't want to talk about things like the fact that the carbon tax is going up, Mr. Speaker. The only stated position of the Liberal Party on the carbon tax is that it's good for people. The member in the back's laughing, but she said it's good for people. That was doubled down, Mr. Speaker, by the NDP, who said get over it, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'll tell you something, Mr. Speaker, there is some hope. There is some hope. They have a new leader, and the new leader has never heard of the issue before. So here's what she needs to know. The carbon tax will have 23% on April the 1st, and that should be job one, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The supplementary question.
I'd like to thank the Premier for that answer. Next thing you know, Mr. Speaker, they're going to appoint a tobacco lobbyist to lead Smoke-Free Ontario. Look, gun crime is no laughing matter. Police in Ontario reported 4,791 violent gun crimes in 2022.
Order.
That's 1,000 more. That's 1,000 more than the previous year, Mr. Speaker. Homicide by gun crime is at an all-time high. The Premier has nice catchphrases. The Premier has nice catchphrases like stop the crime and get tough on bail reform, but he's asked the guy who sells the guns for advice. Mr. Speaker, there is a violent gun crime in Ontario every 2 hours. How can we believe the Premier's tough on crime stance when he's asked the guy who sells the guns to appoint the judges?
To reply, the Premier.
Here we go again, Mr. Speaker. Not doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down, quintupling down. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud to go out there and tell the people that seen violence in their homes, violence on the streets, violence in our subways, that we're going to get judges that are actually going to keep these criminals in jail. There isn't a person around the Toronto GTA hasn't faced some sort of crime, a gun to their heads in their homes, hand over the keys, kick in the doors, only to see, Mr. Speaker, these...
Okay, I must be able to hear the member who has the floor. In this case, it's the Premier. I'm going to ask the member for Ottawa South, the member for Orleans to come to order.
Selling them to the Canadian Armed Forces, so we should be really worried.
I'm going to ask the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to come to order. If this persists, I will start warning members. Do you hear me? Start the clock. The Premier has the floor.
Only to see these violent criminals, Mr. Speaker, get out on bail. And guess what they do? The next day they're out on bail after our police officers put their lives on the line to arrest them. They're back kicking in the doors again, putting guns to people's heads, stealing the cars, trying to run over our police officers. But the Liberals and NDP, they think that's fine. Let's stay the status quo. I'll tell you one thing, we aren't staying the status quo. We're going to get judges that are tough on crime.
Stop the clock.